Well, here we are at Coral Castle.
Yes.
Something I've known about for at least probably more than 3 decades. And I've always said, one of these days I got to get down here and check it out for myself. And here we are.
And so here we are, yeah. So what did you think about it? What were your favorite parts of the
Well, of course, what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, as a builder, I've had to move some fairly heavy, not 30 tons, but up to a ton. And I know what's involved in that without mechanized help. So it's quite impressive. Now, the question...
What's your best guess?
Well, I got to think that he used some kind of pulley system, block and tackle. I'm going to go with that before I go to something more esoteric like levitation. But hey.
And the fantastic guide we had, she kept mentioning that I don't think he was Jewish because there's some sort of possible Jewish symbology in there. But she kept saying that this was Masonic. Would you agree that some of the things she was referring to were Masonic?
I could be persuaded pretty easily. Yes.
Okay.
And there are some, in some of the Masonic symbolry, there are some iconographic images of them moving large stones.
Okay.
Which I'll show you. Maybe we can dig something up. And
that would be great.
Oh, you know what? I have a whole Masonic thing on my laptop that I brought.
Awesome.
We can look at that tonight.
That would be, well, maybe not tonight, but if you could share it, yes.
Yeah.
We could do that on a stream.
Yeah. Are you coming back to Clearwater?
I'm not coming back to
Clearwater. Oh, well,
Clearwater.
then we couldn't do it tonight. But
no,
we
actually on my laptop last night, I found a presentation where it showed a picture of Ed with someone was claiming it was Ed, with some of these very, very hard pieces of wood in a frame like this and with a whole bunch of pulleys.
Yeah.
But can you imagine that huge block? Can anyone remember how heavy that really big block was?
30 tons.
30 tons.
Yeah.
30 tons? That is insane. Yeah, you've got to have some pretty good solid ground. Yeah. So how many pulleys would you need in order to lift a 30 ton with a man's weight?
Well, I'm guessing that he had to do something like up one end, put in some kind of a spacer, jack up the other end, and work it up like that.
Okay.
And then use some kind of maybe perhaps roller or something. You got to get up, and then you got to get it into position.
Right.
If I was going to really put my head onto this, and which I never really thought it through, I would think that that's how you have to do it. I mean, when we put in half-ton to ton I-beams, that's how we do it.
Right.
We'll jack up one end, we'll put a piece of hard 4x4 under it, we'll jack up the other end, and we'll just lift it up like that, and then got to get it into place. So,
do you think that he might have used like a mud mound as well, maybe? Like they claim some of the pyramids were built.
I guess I wouldn't really see how that would work.
Because it's so heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, the mound would almost have to be as solid as concrete because you couldn't put a 10-ton block up on any kind of soil or anything that's not consolidated.
Right.
So.
And you've actually built quite a few restaurants and other buildings around where you live and in
Yeah. So we've had to put steel into place and it can be anywhere. I don't know if we've ever done anything more than a 1-ton I-beam.
Right.
But, it was a multi-hour process. There was several of us involved. Doing it alone would be challenging. I guess what we need to do is find somewhere, quarry a big chunk of rock.
See what we can do with it.
Yes.
Now, there was a story, I believe, many years ago where some of the coral comes directly from the surrounding area here, and you can see how he's cut it out and maybe just tilted that up, and those are relatively easy to conceptualize. But some of the other rock, and including some of the bigger pieces, has come from apparently about 10 miles away.
That's what she was saying.
Yeah, and there was this story where some of this rock was delivered, and then some kids were nearby, and they say they saw him moving the rock around with 2 little cone things. You heard that story?
No.
No, you see kind of like, there's all kinds of myths with this place. But it's getting to the facts. Most of it you can see how he could have probably carved it, at least in the ground, right? I mean, those ones you can physically see the tool marks on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fairly obvious. Do you think that might have been, because it's only on one side, those tool marks, do you think it was like, that's part of the lifting process?
That would be my first guess.
Right. And does that give you any insights?
Well, she said that was, what did she say? It's car parts that he was using.
Yeah, he was using the leaf springs from, suspension.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that, and he has in another part of the Coral Castle, he has what's called his kitchen, and he actually has the differential, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he uses that as a pressure cooker with a bellows to blow the furnace. So overall, are you happy you came?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful day, right?
Yeah. So now, people, I get asked, have you ever been down to Coral Castle? Yeah. Well, no, I haven't, but now I can say, yes, I have.
Have you read his books?
I've read some stuff, but I mean, it literally had to have been 30 years ago.
Right.
I got a book, and it might have been Bruce Cathy. Remember him?
No,
he wrote about a bunch of, alternative science type stuff. And I think there was a couple of chapters in there. That was the first place I would have ever heard. It might have been 40 years ago, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago.
Well, the two books that I'm aware of is a book in every home.
Which I have that, yes.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing about that is inside the inside cover, it has two triangles mirrored, pointing towards a yin-yang in the center. And this is very close to my understanding of how this coherent matter levitating process works, which adds a little bit of complication to me. Now, the book is about relationships and so on, which is interesting, having come here, because he had such a difficult time because he had this unrequited love. Billy Idol wrote this song Sweet 16 and recorded it here, and it was about the fact that he fell in love with this person and he planned a family with them, but it never really happened. And so that's one thing. You can see why he might want to talk about relationships and so forth. The other book was on magnetic current.
Yes, and I have that book, and I have read that book, and I couldn't tell you much about it because it was a long time ago.
Well, here's the thing. I read it many years ago, and I started reading the first kind of concepts of it. And now, with the research that the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project has done in the intervening time, I tell you, there is some deep insights in there, and I think I need to reread it.
Well, then I'm going to do the same myself.
I'm hoping I can get an original print copy from here, and maybe you'd like to sign it for me. And I'll get Russ George, who's over there as well, who we happened to catch on the way through.
Now I don't know Latvian, so I can't.
Okay. Well, there's always Googly Translate, so we can maybe find it there.
Okay.
But anyway, pleasure to be here with you,
as
Randall.
always.
And Coral Castle, guys. Ed Leedskalnin's
masterpiece.
It's almost like his Taj Mahal, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.